All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you and welcome to Foothill Alumni's Think Tank Tuesday. I'm Nichelle Toussaint, the proud president of Foothill Alumni Chapter. And again, I welcome you to our before you go to the poll, Think Tank Tuesday. Foothill Alumni has served the community since 1991, and we believe that it is our responsibility to empower the communities we serve. So we hope that you get as much as you can and you spread the word as we are coming down to the last few days of getting in our vote. And now I introduce to you our Social Action Chair, Sir Alexis Marion.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us tonight in our last, thank you. Can you hear me now? Perfect. Thank you for joining us for our last event of October. We are super excited. And as Sora Toussaint said, we are down to the wire. We've just got 1 week left to make sure everyone gets in their votes and has all the information they need in order to do so. So just a quick review of the agenda for y'all. We're gonna go over some election and voting myths. We'll talk about creating a voting plan, how to vote in person and things you should know in order to make it go smoothly. We'll talk a little bit about what to do after the election. We'll have some Q&A, and then we'll have our evaluation and our gift card raffle. Just so you know, all participants are muted and you are not on camera. So lucky for you, you didn't have to get all jazzy tonight. And if you have a question, whether it is technical or content related, please either put them in the chat or use the Q&A function, either one. They are both being monitored. And we will throughout, as there are links that are being shared, those will also be shared in the chat. So check there if there's something you have a question about as well. We will answer questions during the Q&A, but we'll also stop throughout just to make sure we're not missing anyone's questions. And we will send some resources afterwards. All of the Think Tank Tuesday content is on our website. So this will also be on our website for you to share with others. And then just one last reminder is please stay until the end to complete your evaluation and be entered into the gift card raffle. We love to hear your feedback, but we also like to, reward you for that feedback. Couple of notes for you is that the voting information presented in tonight's webinar is for California only, since we are based right here in Southern California. If you need to find your local voting regulations or voting information, or you want to share with someone where they can find their voting information, it's really simple. Just go to vote.gov, G-O-V, and you can put in your address and you will find your local voting information. But the information we're talking about tonight is mainly, it's for California, though there are some things that are general. And then if you've attended any of our other seminars, you might notice a couple slides that are familiar to you, but that information is so important. We thought it bears repeating as we get closer to election day. We are still getting a lot of questions. So we want to make sure that information is repeated. So please stick around with us through the whole seminar. And right now I will hand it over to my soror, Pamela Scott Johnson, to talk about election myths.
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. We're so happy to have you. Now, it's very important that we share some of the myths and some of the realities because there's so many out there. And while I might encourage you to stay off the news and all of the media, I do want you to know the facts and encourage you to be informed. So what are some of the myths and what are some of the realities? One myth is if I leave something blank on my ballot won't be counted. Well, the reality of it is that if you leave something blank, that is, you don't mark a choice for a candidate or a proposition, no vote is recorded for only that item. So if you decide, hey, I don't know enough about this proposition, I'm going to leave this blank, your ballot will be counted, but that particular item will not. What is another myth? Vote by mail ballots are thrown out if they arrive after Election Day. Well, the reality is county election officials will count all vote by mail ballots that are postmarked on or before November 3rd, Election Day. and arrive no later than 17 days after Election Day. So it's very critical that if you are going to put your vote in the mail, have it postmarked by November the 3rd. What's another myth? Provisional ballots are only counted if the race is close. Provisional ballots are not those cast by voters who register on Election Day at the polls. What is the reality? All eligible provisional ballots are counted. Provisional ballots must be checked to ensure that the voter was registered properly and they did not cast a vote elsewhere. So because this human review takes longer, provisional ballots are typically counted after Election Day and after vote by mail are counted. Next slide, please. What are some other myths? People with no fixed permanent address cannot register to vote. Well, that's not true. If you do not have a street address, you can use the cross streets of the place where you spend the most time. For mailing address, you can use the address of a friend or relative, a P.O. box, or even an organization that allows you to receive mail. Particularly a homeless shelter can be an example of that. And what's one of our final myths that we're going to share with you tonight? You must present ID to vote. That is a myth. In general, if you are already registered, you will not be asked for an ID to vote, even if you do not show up on the registration list. If it's your first time in a federal election, you may be asked for an ID. If you do not have an ID, you still have the right to cast a provisional ballot and then provide ID before the election period is over. And those details will be provided by the poll worker. So thank you for allowing us to share some of those. Sarah Alexis, I'm going to return back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So the reason we share those is because we want to make sure that you and anyone you talk to, even on Election Day, if you hear someone say to you, oh, well, I tried to go vote, but they asked me for ID and I didn't have any, or, they turned me away because I don't have an address or I can't prove where I live. You can let that person know that they go right on back. Okay, you can cast a ballot today, get in that line and don't get out of that line until you cast your ballot. Okay, so we want to make sure you're armed with the correct information as much as possible. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about creating a voting plan. Now, granted, you probably know or may have already yourself voted. You may have sent in your ballot, gone to an early voting center, whatever it may be. But I'm sure there are people around you, in your family, your friends, in your network, who have not voted yet, who are not quite sure. We all know someone who procrastinates until the very last moment to do everything. When it's Thanksgiving, they get their turkey in the morning. Okay, so they are waiting to the last moment to put their vote in. Okay, they want to hear everything before Election Day, and that's when they're going to go. So it can be really helpful to continue to share this information with them so that they at least are kind of getting prepared and have options on that day. Next slide, please. So the first things that you should know, if you are going to fill out your ballot at home, for example, I have my ballot right here and I'm going to fill it out at home, you can drop your ballot off at a Dropbox location or take it to a vote center. Right now, we are recommending to folks that it is best to drop your ballot off yourself. Don't rely on the mail. Make sure you take it to one of the two places that seem to be most secure in this situation, which is going to a vote center that's close to you and dropping it in their Dropbox, or taking it to an official Dropbox location. So here's the things you need to know. Fill out your ballot. You have to seal it in the envelope that they give you, and you need to sign it. I don't know how I missed that on here, but you need to sign it and then return your ballot. Your signature is absolutely important. And the signature, generally, the signature that it needs to match is your California ID or driver's license. Whatever your most recent identification is that you have, that's usually the signature that it will be tested against, because you probably automatically registered when you received that license. So just make sure that it matches up with that signature. And then you're going to take it to a vote center or drop it in an official Dropbox, which we have a picture of here. If the Dropbox does not look like this, do not put it in there. This is what only official drop boxes. They have the yellow on the top. They have the LAvote.net. They tell you that it is an official Dropbox, that tampering with it is, is a criminal act. So do not drop it in anything that does not look like this. If you at all feel any sort of discomfort with what the Dropbox looks like, you're not sure, then take it to your closest vote center or to your county registrar's office. Those are the other places that you can drop it off and be assured that it has gone to the correct place. And you can do that on election day, but just note that the vote centers are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And those times also apply to the drop boxes. So don't think that at 10:30 p.m. you can go put it in the Dropbox, because there's no guarantee that they haven't already picked up all of the ballots, okay? So if you're going to vote in person, guess what? You can already do that now. The vote centers are open for early voting, and so you can look up online where a vote center is closest to you and go in and vote. What you should take with you, obviously, is a mask. You should wear a mask, take some hand sanitizer. We're suggesting that folks take a blue or black pen with you just in case you do need to sign something, so that you don't have to use their pen that's there. So I would just suggest you take one with you. Also, bring some snacks or water. So far, the lines haven't been that long in most places that people are going, but you want to be prepared just in case. You never know what might happen. People have been in line for hours in other states, so you just want to be prepared. And please note that you can bring notes with you. Many people don't realize that your ballot it's an open book test, okay? You don't have to remember everything that's on there. You can bring with you your official sample ballot that has everything inside of it. You can mark it up and bring it with you to fill out your ballot. You don't have to memorize everything. That is not necessary. So please bring notes with you, write notes in your phone, whatever you want to do, you're allowed to do that. And then, bring your ID just in case. Most people don't leave the house without their ID, so you probably already have it on you. And then get to the vote center early. Let's not procrastinate. Let's get there early in the day, if at all possible. Your work schedule might affect that, but if you can, I would suggest you go early, get in and out, move on with your day, get something from Starbucks, and know that that you're done, you've fulfilled your duty. And as someone is pointing out in the chat, Sarah Carter is pointing out, closest to you doesn't mean closest to where you live. You can go, as a resident of LA County, you can go to any vote center, so closest to your job, closest to your child's daycare center, closest to your church, wherever you're going to be, you can find a vote center that's closest to wherever you are, so that you don't have to go out of your way, because sometimes that's difficult depending on your schedule. And then the other thing we wanted to point out is that if you're going to vote in person, you can use quick check-in to make your visit to the vote center go more smoothly. So this is what, on your official sample ballot booklet that you received in the mail, on the back, there is a red box with a barcode. Wow, that's harder to do on camera than I thought. Okay, so there's a red box with a barcode. This is your quick check-in barcode. And when you get to the vote center, it can be scanned by an election worker. So that way they know who you are, they know that you have checked in, you're registered to vote. That barcode corresponds to your ballot. So they already know who you are. So you're ready, you get up to the machine and you're ready to go, no problems. Next slide, please. All right, two issues that happen a lot on election day. Two big things: transportation and accessibility for voters. So one thing to note is that LA Metro is free on November 3rd because they want citizens to be able to go and participate in the election. So it is free on November 3rd. The buses, the rail system, all of that is free on November 3rd. There are also official drop boxes at 19 rail and bus locations. So that does mean if you're someone who has to go into work that day, you normally, you take the bus to work or you go on the blue line, the gold line, whatever, there are drop boxes at 19 different stations, including Union Station, where you can drop off your ballot and you don't have to, mess up your schedule that day in order to participate. The other two options are Lyft and Uber. They are both offering some sort of discount for rides going to and from the poll. So it's specifically to poll locations. You go in the app and you have to choose a poll location, and then you'll get a discount up to a certain amount. For both of them, it's 50% off. For Lyft, it's 50% off up to $10, and it's just to the polls, but not returning. And then for Uber, it's 50% off a round trip ride to and from the poll, up to $14 total, I think. So those are two options for folks. If you know someone who's like, oh, I can't get there, how do I get there? All three of those might be an option. You can also set up a carpool. Maybe, you know, there are people in your neighborhood who would really like to go vote in person. Set up a carpool with them and help them out, get them to the polls as well. As far as accessibility goes, we're really lucky in California because with these new voting machines, they are designed to allow anyone with any impairment to be able to use them independently. In the past, if you had a vision impairment, you would need help from a poll worker in order to complete your ballot. And the machines that we have now, if you're in a wheelchair, you can roll right up to them, no problem. If you have a vision or hearing impairment, you can work them completely on your own. They're very simple to use. So that is one great thing about what we have going. If you cannot return your ballot for whatever reason, it can be an impairment, it can be an accessibility issue, it could be that you have to work, you know, from 7 a.m. to 12 midnight and you just cannot return your ballot, whatever it is. You can authorize someone to take your ballot for you. In the past, it was that you had to pick someone in your household, basically, in order to take your ballot, but that's not true anymore. It can be a friend, it can be whomever. As long as you're not giving them any compensation, and compensation includes giving them a ride, giving them, you know, saying, I'm going to pick up some groceries for you. Just don't say it. Now, obviously, no one's really going to know that you said that to the person, but that is the rule. You cannot offer compensation for someone to take your ballot in. We have had questions about whether, you know, you can take a group of people's ballots into the poll, into the vote center. No, you cannot. So, and that goes for if someone is telling you, an organization is telling you like, hey, drop off your ballots here and we'll take them in for you, no problem. That is illegal and they cannot do that. So take your ballot yourself or give it to someone you trust to take it, but no one can collect a group of ballots to take to the polls because there's no way to know that they actually got there, right? And that can be a problem, so don't do that. The last thing to know is that LA County is offering car-side voting. So let's say you like to vote in person, you feel most comfortable voting in person, but you don't feel comfortable, maybe you have a compromised immune system like I do, you don't feel comfortable going into the polling center. So they offer car-side voting where they will have a designated area at each vote center. You pull up there, that lets the worker know to bring someone out for the car-side voting, and you can do your voting right there. You don't have to go in. That is also being offered for people who choose not to wear masks. So the vote centers are requiring that you wear a mask inside the vote center. And so if there's someone you know who does not want to wear a mask, they can still vote in person. They must do it from their car. That is the alternative that is being offered so that everyone can still participate in the voting process. Next slide, please. So the last thing, and one of the most important things to talk about, is electioneering, because I think sometimes people don't necessarily have an understanding of what it is or don't know that they're doing it, and so they get turned away from the polls. And we don't want anybody, not one person, to get turned away from the polls accidentally. So it's really important to understand what electioneering is. And all it is any sort of campaigning, whether it is visual or auditory, you can hear it or see it, okay? Any sort of campaigning you can hear or see that is taking place within 100 feet of a polling place. That is electioneering. And so we want to be very careful and very clear about what it is and what it isn't. So anything that shows, electioneering is anything that shows a candidate's name, their likeness, so their picture, so that Obama Hope picture, you cannot wear that 100 feet within the polling place. You can't wear any of the candidates' faces anywhere near the polling place. You can't use their official logo anywhere near the polling place. You also cannot show or wear or have a button of a proposition number, a measure, so Measure J, Proposition 22, whatever it is, you can't have any of that, on you, whether it's a pen, a pencil, a shirt, a sign, a sticker, it does not matter. You cannot have that. You can't get on a bullhorn and broadcast information. If you're like me and you talk very loudly, you need to bring your voice down a little bit, okay? And act like you're in the house with your inside voice, just so that you don't have any problems. So all of those things are not allowed. Now, what is allowed is campaign slogans are allowed, and political movement slogans are legally allowed. This comes straight from the Secretary of State. They argued about this in court. It is legally allowed for you to have a t-shirt that says Black Lives Matter, or for you to have a t-shirt that says BLM on it. That also means it is legally allowed for the folks who like the red hats to have that slogan on their items. And while this may seem counterintuitive, that these are the current rules. So we need to make sure to stick within them. What are your options if you see something happening or someone with you didn't know about the rules? They have a t-shirt on that has a candidate's face on it. Tell them, oh, turn it inside out, right? Go in the car, turn it inside out real quick. They should be fine. Put a jacket on over it, right? You know, if they have a hat on, they can take it off and put it in their bag for while they're, you know, there, and then they can put it on when they leave. The best thing to do is to avoid causing an issue. So if you see something like that or someone has questions about it, let them know. It's best just to stray away from logos and signs and all of that while you're at the voting center. Then as soon as you leave, put it all on, okay? Do your best, put it on, all of it, because you voted. You were amazing. You did what you were supposed to do, okay? So we just want you to aware of what electioneering is, what you should do if you see it, if someone's participating in it. If you see anything, they will clearly mark 100 feet. And so if you see anything within 100 feet, you can let an election worker know, hey, this doesn't seem right to me. And just let them know and keep it moving, right? You don't have to argue or anything like that. Just say, hey, I just saw something that seems like it's not supposed to be happening, you know, and they will handle it. They've been trained to handle all of these issues, okay? So let me stop for a second there, just make sure there are no questions before we move on, which I don't see any questions right now. So I'm gonna turn it over, next slide please, and I'll turn it over to Sora Jamel Peck to talk about voting in person. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I am going to talk a little bit about voting in person. And can we go to the next slide? I'm going to give you a couple of tips, to-dos, and reminders. Please wear your mask. We're still in COVID times, and it's no sense in catching COVID just because you want to vote in person. So wear your mask. You also don't want to be turned away. As Sora Alexis did share with us, you can still vote if you don't want to wear a mask, but the procedure is a little bit different and it's going to take a little bit longer. You can also use your check-in code to help speed up the process. It's on the back of your official sample ballot. Let's try to get that there so you can see it. And that will speed up as you have been registered, you're ready to go, and you can go ahead and vote. If for some reason you're not showing up as a registered voter, something went wrong, it changed, and your name is not coming up, you can still vote. You can cast a provisional ballot. You can register on the day of and cast a provisional ballot on the day of election, on the 3rd of November. So that's not going to be a problem. Don't worry, don't get all flustered about it. Just go ahead. The election workers will help you through that process and you can still vote. You are able, as Sora Alexis has already told us, to bring your notes, bring your sample ballot, bring your little cheat sheets. This is not a closed book test. You can bring everything that you need to help you get through it. It will also help you go through the ballot more quickly and you can remember kind of what you were thinking on some of those propositions. Take your notes and make sure you get it right and take your time. If you have questions, if you get there and there's some confusion, you're not quite understanding the process, you are very free to ask the election workers at the vote center. If you need more help, if they're very busy and you need more help, there is a voter hotline and the number is shown, 800-345-VOTE, 8683. So go ahead and ask the election workers, get the help you need. And if you see any improper behavior, if you see people with the red hats and shirts on and they are too close, they can't come within 100 feet of the polling place. If you think things are not going well, you have the right to report that and go to the election protection hotline. The numbers are all there and you can see. I'll give you a second if you see some numbers you might want, or take a picture of it so you can bring it with you to the polls and make sure you report it. We are all going to do the right thing and not wear extra stuff, but if you want to have your BLM t-shirt on, go ahead, that's okay. But you cannot have a candidate picture or a candidate name t-shirt on within 100 feet of the polling place. Election workers will not, they are monitoring, they're not gonna let you in, and we're trying to keep this as civil and peaceful as possible. We don't want any mess because we want all of our votes to be counted. Next. You have a few rights on election day. You have the right to vote if you are a registered voter, even if your name is not on the list. As we were saying, you can cast a provisional ballot, you can register on that day, and if they get to counting the provisional ballots, your vote will be counted. You are the polls close at 8 p.m., you're in line already, and you are still in line, and the line looks like it's an hour long from where you're standing. You can still vote. They cannot kick you out of line if you are there on time before the polls close. Now, if you get there at 8:05, you got a little problem. But if you get there at 7:55, you're good. If you get there at 7:59, you're good. You can still vote, even if it takes another hour or so for the line to get to you. You also have the right to cast a secret ballot. Other people do not need to know how you vote. You do not have to tell anybody. And if someone asks you and you don't want to share that information, you do not have to. If you want to, that's your right. But if you don't want to, your ballot should be secret. You're writing your ballot, you make a mistake, you accidentally vote for someone who you have on your cheat sheet that you didn't want to vote for, you can get a new ballot. Go ask the election officials. If you have not submitted it, they can give you a clean ballot to start over again. You have the right to cast your ballot you have the right to get help in casting your ballot from anyone you choose except your employer or your union representative. So if you want to have a family member to accompany you to help you, you do have that right. You have the right to drop off your completed vote by mail ballot in any polling place here in California. You do not have to drop it off at the location closest to your home. You can drop it off at the one near your work, near the transportation stations, anywhere, or if you just happen to be in San Francisco this weekend, you can drop it off up there. If English is not your first language, you have the right to get materials in your language, in your favorite language. If you want a French ballot, you can get one, if that's your favorite language and you speak it and understand it. You have the right to ask questions of elections officials. And if they don't have the time because it's crowded, there is the voter hotline where you can call and get additional information. And the last right you have is to report any illegal or fraudulent election activity to an elections official. We want the process to go as smoothly as possible. I know everybody's up in arms about what's going to happen, but if we follow this guide, some of these tips and to-dos, we will have a very smooth voting process and your vote will be counted. I'm going to turn it back over to Sora Alexis.
Thank you. And I just want to add one little point, because I've been asked about, asking questions of the election workers, right? And so this is a democracy. So we are not only allowed, but encouraged to ask those questions. If there's anything you don't understand, something's not working, please feel free to ask. Now, they are able, if they feel like you are being disruptive, which that is the language they use in the materials, which disruptive can mean a lot of different things. But if they feel like you're being disruptive, they can refuse to answer further questions. That is within their rights to do so. And at that point, the best thing to do, so let's say you ask questions and whomever you're talking to that time just is having a bad day and doesn't want to answer further questions. One, you can try a different poll worker. So that's an option. But at that point, it's best to use the state voter hotline. So you're going to want to use that 800-345-VOTE, so 345-8683. And just, you're absolutely allowed to, now if it's getting close to 8 o'clock, don't leave. But if it's, you have enough time, step out of the polling place, make the phone call, ask the questions you need to ask, and get things resolved that way. If it's getting close to 8, then you're going to want to stay in line, even if you have to go to the back of the line to have time to make your call, but stay in the line, obviously. So now we'll turn it over to Sora Gwen Lisboa, and we'll talk about after the election.
Okay, thank you, Sora Alexis. Well, now you've gone through the whole process and you're not quite finished. So let's look at the next slide and see what you're to do after you turned in your ballot. And remember, we're suggesting that you turn your ballot into a vote center or a voting box and not mail it at this time. You may want to know what happened to that ballot once you've submitted it. You can track your ballot by going online to where'smyballot.sos.california.gov. It's a very simple process. At that site, you register in just a few minutes. You provide your name, birth date, and zip code, and then you let them know whether or not you want to be contacted by email, text, or voice call, and the time of day for that call. Next slide, please. What now? Well, guess what? You can take a breather. You did your part. Waiting for the outcome is anxiety-inducing. So use this time for self-care or connecting with family. Don't let yourself be overwhelmed by the process and by what's happening in the exit polls. Millions more people are casting their votes this election than any time in recent history. It will take time to count and validate the votes. We're used to getting the result on November the 3rd or that Tuesday evening. It may not come Tuesday evening. We may have to wait for a final vote a day or so afterwards. Know that the movement continues. Your responsibility as a citizen is not over. Take your focus to your community. Make a plan for being active in local politics and on issues that affect you the most. Politics is local. Take time, go to your local city council meeting, go down to that Board of Education meeting, know what's happening in your community, stay engaged after the voting. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So at this time, look at us, we're just like moving through it because a lot of you have voted already. A lot of you are like, I know this information. I'm going to share this information with at least one person. So at this moment, you've stayed this long. So now you're going to fill out your evaluation. We'll take any questions at this time as well. And what you can do is if you use your smartphone, you can use the camera to take a picture of the QR code that's right in the middle of your screen right now. And that'll take you straight to the evaluation. You can do it from your phone. It takes 2 minutes. Or someone will drop the link in the chat. It has just been put in the chat to complete the evaluation. So just take a minute to do that real quick so that we can also have our gift card drawing. And we'll take any questions, in the chat or comments that you had, anything you want further information about. I know that this election period is very overwhelming. There's a lot going on. Many of us are ready for next Wednesday to be here just so we can be done with this part of things. So please do take that, encouragement to heart, to take some time for self-care, take some time to connect with your family and talk with them about something other than what is going on in the White House, right? Have fun and talk about something else, watch a movie together, whatever it is, because it is so, we, especially as Black people in America, it can feel like such a burden, like we're carrying it all on our shoulders, which, I mean, let's be honest, we are and have been for like 500 years. But, it is just as important, and we can only be effective when we are also taking good care of ourselves. And something that, we have not been able to do as a people in the United States of America is take care of ourselves. Because when we take care of ourselves, we are stronger, right? And so we need to take time for that as well as we move through this election season and afterwards. It is just as important to continue to do those things. So I don't see any questions, but I'll give us a second. And sorry, Nichelle, when you're ready with the evaluations, I think based on the number of participants, it shouldn't take more than a couple minutes, but when you're ready, let us know and we'll do the raffle.
Awesome. Right now, we've only received one evaluation, so we'll give it.
Okay. Attendees, please, if we only have one evaluation, then we will just give the gift card to that one person. So if you want to be in the running, please do. And sorors who attended, you are allowed to be in the running for this one because you are. So if you are here, fill out the evaluation, please, because we want to give you a gift card. We do. We want to. But we also, value your feedback, and we want to know how we can improve things for the future. That's important to us as well. I'll give you a second. Give you a second. Go. I'm so excited to finally fill out my ballot, everyone. Excited. Oh, also, since I have your ears, great places to, if you have not filled out your ballot yet and you need information, feel free to visit Ballotpedia. That is a great place. And Voters Edge. If someone can drop those links in there as I'm speaking, that would be helpful. Ballotpedia and Voters Edge. You can put in your address and it'll bring up your local ballot, and it will explain everything that's on the ballot to you, both candidate races as well as propositions and measures. It is super helpful because it gives you probably more information than you ever wanted, but it's helpful and broken down in a way that's easy to understand. And then we have gotten a great recommendation if you are looking more into the judges that might be on your ballot. The Los Angeles Bar Association did provide sort of their guide to who they feel is qualified, unqualified for the positions. So if you want to take a look at that as well, if someone has the link to that sort of Vanessa shared with us, that would be great if you could drop it in the chat. Because I know judges is one of the areas that's probably the most obscure for most people, most difficult to look into. So that can be really, really helpful. All righty. Let's see. We have enough. All right, sorry, Nichelle, what about?
We are ready.
Okay, perfect.
How many raffles are we giving away?
It's at most 5, so it's really up to you based on how many evaluations there are.
Awesome. So our first raffle winner for this evening is Amber Topsy.
Woo! Yay!
She did her evaluation right away, so thank you, Sora Amber.
Thank you.
Our next raffle winner, Angela Briscoe.
Angela. Yay. Thank you so much for completing your evaluation, and congratulations.
Our next raffle winner is Bridget Charlton.
Yay. And I think Bridget had just put in the chat that she needed to go, but that's still fine. We will get that to Bridget.
Our next raffle winner, Leah Carter.
Woo!
And our last raffle winner is Kim Matheny.
Awesome. Look at that. Thank you all so much for filling out your evaluations. You will receive in your email a link for a gift card. So just keep an eye on your email over the next couple of days to get that so that you can redeem it. Okay. And I'll give it back to you, Sora Nichelle.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We sincerely hope that these Think Tank Tuesdays have been very resourceful to you as we've tried to share knowledge and empower you to be ready to vote. We will continue to all push forward and share with the community, vote, vote, vote. And thank you again for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night, everyone.
When is the next Think Tank Tuesday?
We are tentatively scheduled for November 17th at 7 p.m.
Thank
So
you.
we'll have information, more information going on about that through email.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Let's see. Social Action, you can stay on for a